welcome back to another episode of Talks with Crystal Skulls. Today is a real treat for me because I get to speak with a very dear friend. Her name is Brannon, but she also is the author of the Highest Light series, which is a trilogy of novels, of which she has two of those books already out. The first was Atlantis Writhing, and the latest one that just came out, I think just at the beginning of the year, she can correct me if not, is Atlantis Splitting, and this is the second in her series. And she's currently working on the third, which we can look forward to seeing soon, or however long that takes, because writing is a journey. And she's also an acupuncturist, and we might talk a little bit about that just for an understanding of her journey in life. But overall, she's just a huge bright light, an anchor, I feel, of love and joy and inspiration in this world. And that's kind of what unites the two of us, because I think we're on a similar mission. But without further ado, hello, Jean.
Hi, Tanya. How are you?
I'm doing great, and thank you for being here. I'm so honored and so touched that you could join today.
Thank you.
I'd like to just share a tiny bit of a background of how Jean and I came together. For me, all connections like this feel more like a reconnection. It's not a new connection. So it's kind of written in the stars, I feel, a soul family kind of coming together that happens. And it was the web that shared its gifts with us of how to connect that way with soul family, which I find that the dearest people in my life, besides my biological family, come that way, is through the web. And so it's kind of like this golden thread that, weaves us all together. So I'm very grateful. And I think it was about in 2018 that Jean was finishing up her first novel of the series, and was doing some research, I believe, if my memory serves, for some cover art. And she stumbled upon my art, and she reached out, and that's how we started connecting. I told her at the time that I didn't think my art was probably for a cover, because I'm more old school painter, and I felt she probably needed more of a graphic type of artist. But regardless, that was how we got in touch, and it was just this beautiful, like I said, reconnection of soul family. She felt like a sister, and it just developed into a beautiful friendship in the now. So much so, that we ended up inviting her even to our online wedding in 2020, which was such a gift. But I did get a chance to read her first novel, and at that time, I did a review and an interview with her. I used to have a blog spot called The Writer's Corner, and so we got to know each other even more during that process. And after that, she went on to write another book called Pants Down, which I love that title, and it focuses on the lesser known chakras, and she kind of wove some of the healing methods and main prominent people and characters in her book into that story. And so we joined up again and did another interview. And so as you can see, I really love her work, very enthusiastic about everything that she does and puts her heart into. But most of all, I just love her heart. So I'm so happy that you get to share that. And it was most recently when I was reading her next book, and did another review because I wanted to, endorse her beautiful work, that we reconnected after a little bit of a break, from not being so much in touch, which was like, again, no space had happened. We picked up right away. But that's when I learned of the very cool synchronicities that we were having with Crystal Skulls. And so we're going to get into that today as well, because that's what we're here. Our focus, Talks with Crystal Skulls. But I'd like to first start kind of about your journey, Jean, and how you got into writing this in the first place, this, this trilogy. I do remember that at the time that you started, you had lost a very significant life partner in your life, and through that loss, if I remember, you kind of looked back at your list of things you most wanted to accomplish in life, and one of them was to be a novelist. And I think that's kind of what jump started you to just take a hold and start writing. So maybe you can share a little bit about that, and also what drew you to having the world of Atlantis as this, the backdrop for your story. Was there some connection with that loss or that experience in your life?
Well, so it was at a time in my life when my partner of 13 years, Greg, had passed away. And I felt I was in a place of looking to reclaim what I would term my life as opposed to our collective life. And so I felt so drawn to write a love story. And I wanted to incorporate some of the beautiful things that I had experienced in relationship, but I also wanted to be able to tie that to messages for people about empowerment and about looking on the bright side no matter what's going on, and how can love be a healing force in this world. And so I had always loved fantasy books. Ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated by the ocean. Even though I grew up in West Virginia, which is landlocked, I had never seen the ocean until I was 9 years old. But my earliest my earliest memories of getting books when I was like 5 and 6, I was always looking for those kinds of stories that had, mermaids in them and things like that. I was just completely captivated. And so as I was sifting through all of these things after Greg passed, I was thinking, how can I combine all of this? And it just kept coming to me, Atlantis, Atlantis. So I thought, all right, well, maybe the goal is to write a story that's a love story, and it ties in with Atlantis, and so I can bring together all of these things that I love. And it began as a healing journey for me personally, because I felt if I could connect with this story, it would help me just process a lot of feelings. And so I began it. And the interesting thing is I didn't tell a soul that I was doing it, because there was a part of me that was afraid I couldn't finish it. And I didn't want to disappoint anybody. And so I thought, well, this will just be my healing work. This will be what I do for myself, and we'll just take it a day at a time. And so at the time, Greg and I had a farm, and we had a joint healing practice, and we were living in Georgia. And so I was running the farm and running the practice. And then at the end of the day, after all the chores were done, I would come and sit at the computer. And interestingly enough, I I would sit at the computer after I composed my thoughts, because I tend to write more naturally, either with a typewriter or with just pen to paper. And so I did all of my writing like that. And then by the time I took it to the laptop and started, writing, it just came out of me. And so I wrote for 7 months and finished the first draft. And I just made a deal with myself. I'm just going to keep writing. I'm not going to get hung up on it. It doesn't matter what it sounds like. I'm not going to get into major editing. I'm going to give myself the gift and the grace to just keep going. And that's really what I did. So that's really how it came to be. And after I finished it, then I started telling, my family and my closest friends, and they were like, "What?" But it had been such a healing process for me, and I still think about that today. I'm just so grateful that I took that road. So yeah, that is what happened with that. And I immediately started, the very day that I finished the first draft, I started writing the sequel. But then it became a bit of a, well, I wonder if I could get this published. And so, I was started to do research into publishing and how could I go about this and that type of thing. And so I would write a little bit on the sequel, and I would be revising the first book, and I was seeking a publisher. So for a while, it was a bit of a, a juggling act. But it's all something I absolutely love. It just lights me up to do it. So
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that story. And like so many others, you didn't just, plop into becoming a novelist, right off the bat, right? If I understand, it was a dream of yours from early on to be a novelist, but you kind of went a more practical route, and became a copywriter, which I totally resonate with because I did the same. I wanted to be a fashion designer, but I went the practical route and went into merchandise marketing. So I get it. But so that's kind of what you did. You were a copywriter in New York for a while, but then you had some back issues that came during that period that then led you on to seek an acupuncturist, and then things turned, right?
correct. And everything is related. And, I look at it and I smile now because I felt as a teenager, even though I really wanted to be a novelist, there was a very practical part of me that wanted to make sure that I did something where I could, get a secure job and that kind of thing. And so I didn't let myself really go along the road that I wanted to. But I thought, well, because writing was so important to me, how can I do this? And so I studied journalism and advertising copywriting, and that is what my corporate career revolved around when after I got out of college. And it was such a big thing, going from West Virginia to New York. It was a culture shock, but I'm still so grateful for those years and the people that I met. I still have so many friends from New York. I was completely welcomed, and I loved it. I really met some fantastic people, and it was a great journey. But I was having back issues, and wearing shoes and that maybe are a little uncomfortable, and dressing a certain way. It's not exactly the most organic way to treat the body, and so I did find an acupuncturist. Someone that I worked with had recommended an acupuncturist, and it was very interesting to go for that, even the very first session, because I literally was in the office and I thought, oh wow, this is really incredible, because there was soft music playing and the lights were low and there was essential oil and it was luxurious. And I thought I could see myself doing this. And it all felt really familiar. It did not feel new at all. I felt like I was reconnecting with a part of myself. And so it took a minute, because it took me a while to really give myself permission to follow a new path. I felt I was on this path. This path was going well. It's what I had trained in. It's what I was about. And so it did take a minute, but I find that as my spiritual journey kept unfolding, the messages don't go away. They just get stronger and louder. And so I eventually did go to acupuncture school, and it literally was a continual unfolding of information that I just felt I intuitively and innately knew. It was just a remembrance of something very, very deep within. Everything made sense to me. Everything about Taoism and nature and living your life according to natural principles. It just felt so right to me personally. So,
Yeah, and then so you view things differently too, because some people might say, oh, you had back issues, and that could be looked at as a not so great thing, and I look at it and say that's a gift. Right? Because it was your own body's messaging, right, that was saying, hey, there's something else, and then it led you on this journey, and you listened. So
Well, that's right. And the spiritual message behind that, really, back problems can indicate you don't feel supported. And I truly can look at that and say I wasn't supporting myself at the deepest level in terms of really being authentic about what can I bring to the table? What's my best and highest? And I wasn't doing that. So as I allowed that to unfold in my life, I don't have back problems anymore. So
yeah,
it's for me it's a beautiful thing, and it's a blessing to understand that connection. And even though I was in pain for a minute, it was worth it because I did get the message. I really did. So
yes, and it comes in so many different ways for me. Because people probably don't think I did other things either, but I've worked in all sorts of fields and in office jobs, and
right.
it took a getting hit by a car. I wasn't hurt. Luckily, I just had some vertigo maybe for a day or two, but it was like crash, boom, wake up, and literally that. And because I listened too, as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, I'm done. And I put myself on this mission. I'm like, in a month, I'm out of my job. I'm getting out. Boom. And then I did because I just had to. So I didn't see it as a negative. The instant I got hit, I was like, it's like I knew, it was just saying, yeah, Tanya, you knew, but it's now, not like, in 5 years from now. So I was
Right.
like, okay. So it was all good. But yes, so stuff like that does happen. And it is really just, an intuitive dialogue, I think, that's going on. But do you feel that, well, as you said, coming into being an acupuncturist, there was a lot of remembrance that you had of doing probably healing, things. But do you feel also that practicing and learning about these ancient healing systems was then like a catalyst to get you back in the novelist journey, since your books do talk about a lot of ancient healing and things like that in your stories?
I do. And it's really interesting because there were so many times, once I was in the corporate world, that I would sit down at the end of the day and I would say, I'm going to start that novel now. And as I would sit with it, I always got the same feeling. And the feeling that kept coming up to me was, I don't have anything to say yet that is really helpful, that could uplift people or help empower people. I knew that I wanted to be able, if I could at all, to use words in a way that would really be helpful. And I didn't want to just write a book to sell books. I mean, if you think about, being a copywriter, I used my words to sell products. And I'm grateful for that. And it was a very supportive career for a while. But I pretty much knew early on that there was something else, there was something deeper, there was something that my soul wasn't quite right with. And I just was seeking. I literally was on a mission, and I really didn't know what it was that I would need to do, because at that time my fear was pretty great in terms of, it's like, I can't just quit my job.
Mhm.
And so it did take a long time for me to sit with that, process it, have experiences that kept going, bringing me around to look at, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And so I feel, for me, getting more into spirituality was the key. It led me to acupuncture, and that led me to where I felt I had something to say, because there were so many truths that would come up, and there was such alignment. I felt so peaceful. Um, when I would hear things and learn things and study things that were all based on nature and natural cycles. And I thought, wow, this is the type of information I would like to weave into fiction. And that really is at the heart of what I really do with the books that I'm writing. I'm doing my best to weave that information in. And so hopefully people can read it, the work that I do, on any level that speaks to them. It's not about being preachy or pounding people over the head. I just try to weave things in there. So if you just want to sit back and read a love story, um, I hope that it works on that level. If you want to read it a little bit more as a woman's journey, if we're talking about Atlantis Writhing, there's a woman's journey of going from a pretty insecure place to being very well on the way to being self-empowered. And so, you know, that's the kind of thing that really lights me up. I really like to try to use words these days to just get people to think and to uplift anybody and to encourage anybody on the path. Follow your heart. It doesn't matter if it's practical. I mean, we, right? I mean, Tanya, you and I both took practical ways, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm so glad that I did that. Yet it's not the only way. So.
And do you, in your practice as an acupuncturist, is that when you felt like crystals first came into your life? I mean, your books, and we'll talk about this a little more, talk a lot about crystals. So anyone who loves crystals will love also reading her books. But do you feel that it was, working as an acupuncturist that they started trickling in, or was it before that?
Well, so the crystals kind of showed up when Greg showed up in my life because he had been working with crystals, and I actually met him at church, and there was a group of us that sometimes would go out for lunch after church, and so there happened to be a crystal show this one Sunday. And a few of us went to this crystal show, and I went, and I remember looking at crystals, and we were all kind of asking Greg, for insights because he had worked with them for a long time and he was helping us pick out crystals. So my very first crystal I bought in the presence of Greg and with his input. Mm-hmm. And that kind of started the journey for me because I was so fascinated. Just the beauty, and they make me feel good. It's a part of nature. I didn't know at the time, but in Taoism, in acupuncture studies and in acupuncture practice, we talk about how different treatments work on different levels of the body. So an acupuncture treatment, for example, works very immediately. You can treat anything very immediately with an acupuncture treatment. But in terms of lasting effects, an acupuncturist will often add herbs for a person to take home because herbs will continue the treatment and it takes it to a little bit of a deeper level and it's more long lasting in terms of the effects. But the interesting thing, and I had no idea until I was in acupuncture school, stones and rocks and crystals are what hold the energy the deepest and the longest. So I found that really fascinating because I know I had always loved having them in my home. I loved just having like a rose quartz sitting near me. It just felt good, or different grounding stones or, just different stones. And so when I went to acupuncture school and found this out, then I thought, well, this really makes a lot of sense because Greg and I had become caretakers of quite a number of stones. And so I started using them in my treatments. And I love doing that because I felt that people enjoyed that. They could feel an immediate benefit. And it, in many cases, it would allow them to go deeper into the treatment faster. And they just felt more at peace. And so I really like doing that. And so I started really incorporating those things together every time I was doing a treatment. And so being able to write about them uh, it's tying it all together for me. And so I love just having conversations with people, if they're curious about stones or whatever. I love sharing them. I love just if people have questions. I just love bringing up those various things that I've learned and sharing that and hearing what somebody else has learned. It's just a great thing. So I think
Mm-hmm.
they're wonderful tools here for a number of reasons.
Yeah, and like I said, in Jean's books, there's a lot of talk of crystals, of course, because we're talking about Atlantis. So so there's a lot of fun journeys. But I love. I mean, that's a beautiful thing about your novels is it's just is the visual sensuality that you're taking on in these worlds, and just everything is so lush and so amazing. You really feel like you're there, and you can see it and feel everything that you're sharing about. But especially the crystals, because you talk a lot about them. I mean, the from the temples to the rooms to sidewalks of crystals, and the crystal spheres that are used by some of them to transmit communication going on. And you even have Maya is a one of the characters who's a crystal keeper, right, in there. And you also speak about other crystals, like I think it was moldavite that you were talking about in the last book, that it was used, they were programming crystals, sometimes not for the highest good, but in particular, I think it was the ruby lavender you spoke about, that even though some of the scientists were trying to program it to do certain things in warlike kind of situations, it would refuse that, because the crystal was just of so much love and highest, energy, that it would have a mind of its own. And so I'm curious, because that brings up something. Do you feel, in working with crystals or crystal skulls, we can work with intention, right? When we're working with them, do you feel though that if we're not aligning with highest light, highest good, that the crystals will not work with us in the same way? Or do you, or what do you feel about that? Do you feel that people could use them with different intentions, or that they may not do what we want because they are only aligned to do that kind of highest good thing? Did that make sense?
Yes, it does. And it's one of the central questions around a lot of the Atlantean mythology, because there are many legends, and a lot of the legends speak about grand crystals that were misused in those times. And it was the misuse of these incredibly large and incredibly powerful crystals that brought down the whole civilization. And so I feel that there's never one way up the mountain. I love that Taoist phrase. Um, and so I don't believe that there has to be one interpretation of events, or of how anything as broad and deep and wonderful a subject as crystals is. It's such um, an incredible tool, an incredible ally. And so much of this planet is made up of stones and crystals. And so I believe that always the highest and best is unfolding. In Atlantis Splitting, one of the themes that I really wanted to play around with and put forward was the idea of embracing the yin yang symbol, which a lot of people are familiar with that. It looks kind of, like two little fishes. Some people look at that as two little fishes with eyes. And, you know, there you have black and white. So like one little fish is white mostly, with a black eye. And then you've got a little black fish with a white eye. And so one of the ways of interpreting that is there's nothing at all that ever exists in isolation. So there is no such thing as absolute pure 100% good without like a little dot, at least, of what we would term bad. Um, I actually don't like those terms because I feel like it brings in judgment. And that's another theme that comes up a lot in Atlantis Splitting is we really may want to just consider stopping our judgment. Because anytime we go into judgment, we can't feel love. And so if we can accept that nothing is 100% correct, or the way that we might want it to be, or 100% highest light. If it can't be 100%, well, does that mean it's wrong? No, maybe if we could look at it like that little bit that's lesser, like I term it lesser light versus highest light. Highest light is sort of equivalent to what one would equate with God. If there's highest light and then everything else is lesser, which is kind of just about a separation from God. If everything else is lesser, well, we have to understand at some point that highest light is always going to have a little bit of lesser light mixed in. So maybe we can just focus on using that lesser light just to ground in our highest and best good. And I feel like if everybody, for the most part, can move through the world just trying to do their best and just trying to be kind and just trying to find a way to don't judge somebody, just give them the benefit of the doubt and maybe just send them some love. It's all good. I think if we can kind of adopt that and say it's all good, then I believe it will all be good. And, do I believe that crystals may have been misused in Atlantis? Well, I think there is a great possibility of that, because if you look at what's going on in the world today, I think most people would argue that there are people in power that misuse a lot of the tools or the gifts that they're given. But does that mean that we should just be in fear and worry about that? No, I think the greater lesson is to just acknowledge, you know what, things aren't perfect here, but they are perfectly imperfect. And it's unfolding in a beautiful way. So why don't we just focus on that? Why don't we just focus on the positive and let's see what happens? So that's how I tend to look at it. Crystals are in the hands of a lot of different kinds of people that have a lot of different beliefs. But is one belief necessarily better than another? I don't think so. So
It always leads us back to the highest good, no matter which direction it goes. It's just,
right?
there's no judgment.
It really, and I love that. I really love that. I love that it comes back to that, because to me that's very reassuring. And I think, if we can just start looking at the world in that way, I think everybody's going to have a better day. I believe that.
Yeah. And yeah, I love that, because you're the characters in the book, there's a lot of different contrasting struggles and power struggles that they're going through, and a lot of coexisting of duality happening. But it's it's the same thing that we're experiencing now in the world that you're depicting in the story. And so that makes me feel everything just is repeating itself, and over and over we keep going through the same kinds of things to maybe come to a deeper understanding of like what you're talking about. And do you feel that since you are talking about some pretty big universal kinds of themes in the book, that that these messages are coming to you. It's something that maybe you're channeling and that you're meant to do, coming from a higher self, or just guided, or are you just tuning into whatever's flowing at the moment? How do you feel about that?
Well, every time that I sit to write, and I do that every day,
Mhm.
I am always very intentional, and I do a lot of praying. I really do. And I do my best to just get aligned and be in a state of gratitude
Mhm.
for it all. And the interesting thing is, probably no one is ever more surprised than I am at what I write. um, because I could say maybe I have an idea or a general notion of, I think I want things to go this way with the story. But one thing that I have found is, by being open in this way and by approaching everything in a very sacred manner and a state of meditation and quietude, I'm amazed at what comes. I really do my best to be um, a pure channel of just, I really, I want to serve spirit, and I want to uplift this place. And so I just will approach writing as basically a meditation where I'm taking notes. And sometimes I just get whole scenes or I get dialogue. It's really amazing because I always get something. And so I get asked a lot, by writers, well, what do you do about writer's block? And I'm like, well, that really doesn't happen to me. And it doesn't happen, it hasn't so far, because I approach it as, I'm just open here and I don't have preconceived notions, and my editor is completely off. When I'm in this mode, I really am not judging what it sounds like, or, you know, trying to make it all perfect. That can trip anybody up. So I try to encourage people, just sit and listen, and try, if you're open to it, either sit with a pen and paper or truly try a typewriter, um, and don't worry about correction tape, because the whole idea is to just let it flow. And I actually love sitting at a typewriter, and if I make mistakes, I just X them out and I keep going. And there's something psychologically very empowering about that. It's like, I don't care. Look, there's a whole row of X's. It's okay. I'm just going to keep going. And so that's my deal with myself. And I find that because that's my deal with myself, the words just flow. So I just try to encourage people, even if you give yourself permission to take 5 or 10 minutes to listen, and then 5 or 10 minutes to just write down what you've heard, you will move through any kind of writer's block that you think maybe it's going on, because uh, maybe some people write a novel in 2 weeks. It's a little slower typically for me. Um, but I kind of just keep going, just keep plugging away. And sometimes I can sit down and a whole chapter comes out, and sometimes I'm with a chapter for like 2 months. It really has happened that way, but it keeps happening, and I don't have a judgment around it. So that's what I try to encourage people to do. Just don't
And
have any.
And that's great. It's also great advice in general. I think what you just said for almost anything in life, right? Um, to just sit and to listen to yourself and what's coming in, and to flow and to not judge it, and but to be that present, like you said, for 10 or 15 minutes, just to like sink into that space and allow, because we don't do that. We're running around doing so many other things. If you just took that 5 or 10 minutes, whether it's you want to write, whether it's how am I feeling today? What should I say to my partner? How do I tune into my crystal? you sit and you listen and you flow and you don't judge.
It's true. It's true. And you know, as an acupuncturist, I've enjoyed working with a lot of people that have come, you know, people come for different reasons. A lot of people come for pain, but I have found that a lot of people have found me over the years when they were really wanting to make a life change and do something with themselves that was about fun, or it was a childhood dream or something like that. And I've always felt so honored to be able to just listen and help with that process. And so many times people get so caught up in, well, I have to have the perfect plan, or I have to have the perfect time off, or I have to have the perfect tool or whatever it is. And I'm like, no, no, that trips all of us up, you know. It probably ideally to get going, it probably needs to be a little imperfect. And one of my favorite phrases is, you know, if you want to make an omelet, you have to break some eggs. And so I feel like that's the part that as kids, you know, a lot of us like to get messy, but maybe we weren't allowed to get messy, you know, fully. Or as soon as we played in the mud puddle, then we had to get cleaned up or something, you know. But I feel like as adults, it's important to play. We have to learn how to play, and play is not about being perfect. It's about having fun, you know. So
Definitely. And that's something also, I mean, like I said, we're talking about everything, but in particular with crystals, that I'm going to be hitting on in other episodes and the previous episode to this one, because people have had frustrations around connecting with their crystals, and so a lot of the stuff that you say is stuff actually I'm incorporating to help with people to tune into their crystals. And one of the first, most important things I found was you need to play more. You need to play and dance in the imagination, because at first this is sort of a foreign thing to talk with your crystal, and it may even seem silly, or it may like have all these judgments and blocks. If you can't dance in that sort of what if field, that may have a hindrance on what kind of exploration and voices and things that you can explore with your crystal may have. So everything you're saying, like I said, can be applied so broadly. So it's beautiful advice. And I love that. So thank you.
Sure. And it's interesting with the crystal skulls because they are a focal point in the third book that I'm working on right now. And it's so interesting. I just wanted to kind of touch on a little bit how I had been listening to your wonderful interviews, and I just loved hearing how you would talk about the skulls. And I'm somebody that I've worked with crystals for a number of years now, about 25 years at this point. And I had in my possession crystal skulls, but Greg and I both, we acquired crystal skulls with the idea that, well, they're not talking to us yet. We don't really know what to do here yet, but we're drawn to these skulls. And so it was just an incredible synchronicity for me to be hearing how you had moved into working with the crystal skulls. And literally after I heard one of your interviews, I had two skulls that were outside. They were very large, and they were in my garden. And this is going to sound nuts, but part of allowing yourself to play or to be in that creative mode is to risk sounding nutty. But those garden skulls talk to me, and I thought to myself, wow, okay, I've had them for 20 some years, and now they're talking. And so I wanted to say that you really opened the doorway. So,
Oh, thank you. You read my mind because I actually wanted to ask you that. So, because it's very interesting because as I said, Jean and I had connected before, and I had done some stuff with her other book, and then I wanted to read the new book and do another endorsement and review because I loved it after reading it, and I reached out to Jean, but I had this idea in my head, and I was like, I want to ask Jean about crystal skulls because she's writing about Atlantis, and I just know somewhere, I don't know, but then I was a little bit like, okay, well, how should I approach it? So I just like asked you, what you felt, and then it was like all this pouring out of synchronicities, as you said. You're like, well, and then we discovered all this stuff, and then I had no idea you had listened to, I think it was Lisa Davis from the Lemurian Roses, the one you listened to, and
yes,
said
yes.
that the skulls all of a sudden talked to you after that. But there was also other connections you shared with how we both have a connection with the ancient skull Max, which we didn't know. So maybe you can share a little bit about that. And then just like all of a sudden, like skulls have become a daily part of your life, you said.
It's so incredible. And even though I know this is how things work, I'm still just kind of blown away because, life is really wonderful and magical. And so it was the year 2000, and Greg and I went to see Joanne Parks, who is the caretaker of Max, the crystal skull. And so we went and listened to her talk, and it was fascinating. And we were sitting there with, Max and all these other people, and it was just a fascinating story. And I couldn't take my eyes off of Max. I'd never been in the presence of of a big skull like that. And so the interesting thing is there was an intermission, and people were signing up for private sessions with Max. And so Greg and I were like, oh, I wonder if we could get a private session. And we were talking. And the interesting thing, Tanya, um, everybody left the room. And Greg and I were stunned because we were left alone with Max. I I never question things. I know that things happen for a reason. And so we were giggling like school kids. We were literally just sitting there like, well, maybe this is our private session with Max. So we had been sitting pretty close anyway, and we just did a little meditation. We held hands across Max's head, and then we put our hands on Max. And I'm telling you, um, there were just incredible waves of energy, and uh, I felt an incredible loving presence in Max. I don't even know how to explain it other than that, but it was profound. And when we left, I mean, Greg and I were completely blown away. And over the next several years, like I said, we became caretakers, but quiet caretakers of various skulls. It just felt like it wasn't the right time. And we didn't have an explanation for that. It was like, okay, we just have to sit with it for a bit. But the interesting thing is, I've never forgotten that. That was one of the most incredible experiences that I've ever had. And I, over the years, I have at times um, kind of just wanted to tune in to Max. And anytime, this might sound strange, but this is really true. Anytime that I just get quiet and meditate, I can literally call on Max and ask to connect to love, and to the love vibration, and to the collective skull consciousness. And it's immediate. It's immediate. That energy that I felt physically putting my hands on the skull, I feel it in my body. It's incredible. And so after after the garden skulls started talking, and they said they wanted to come inside so that they could become active, more active participants. It literally, um, really got me thinking about Max again. And I would want to encourage anybody that is open to the idea of crystal skulls, or let's say if somebody's having maybe some insecurity around how to connect or what to do. I mean, first of all, uh, in my opinion, skulls don't have judgment around it. They're just they are a very solid presence, a very supportive, loving energy, and any which way somebody wants to connect is fine. But I would say it would be interesting for somebody to even go on YouTube, and you can watch um, a video of Max. I've done it myself. There's a video that I pull up sometimes. It's less than 15 minutes long, but a person literally videoed Max for 15 minutes. And the interesting thing is, I can really feel the connection coming through that video. So I just think it's kind of fun. It comes back to playing, you know. If anybody's wanting to just connect or explore crystals or see how this might support them in their life journey, maybe just go on YouTube and watch Max. You don't even have to watch. You just turn on the video and just meditate for 10 or 15 minutes. And that's just another way of starting that journey, I think. I personally feel that all of the skulls, all of the crystals really want to work with us in any which way that we're open to that.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And I love that because they are accessible to anyone, the skull consciousness, like you said. So even if you haven't met them in person or you don't have one yourself, you can easily tap in. Just like you said, you can watch a video or just sit in meditation and have that intention to connect, and you really can. So that's a beautiful thing. And I love, like I said, we didn't know this about each other. It just kind of unfolded because I asked her, what about crystal skulls? I was thinking of maybe we could talk about it, but I don't know. And then boom. And so I found out that both of us had, visited Max and had sessions, personal private sessions with Max. So that was a really cool discovery that we shared that, because he is such a powerful presence. I had some very similar experience to what you shared as well, and that kind of catapulted me into the crystal skull realm. Was after that the same as you. So it was just fun to hear that was sort of our beginning point of remembering this part of the journey with the skulls and bringing them more forth. And that leads me to, because I personally feel like I've worked with skulls before, not just in this life, and crystals, of course. And I'm guessing, but I'll let you speak for yourself, that you feel that sense too, that you have in other timelines.
I feel so at home with crystals in any of their forms.
Mm-hmm.
And I would even tie in Chinese medicine with the skulls, because in Chinese medicine, a lot of times we use a mirroring technique. So if, let's say, somebody has elbow pain, you can use, let's say the left elbow is in pain, you can use the right elbow to help support it. Or you can use the knee, because the knee is the mirroring joint for the elbow. And what I like about crystals in the skull form is I feel that really ties in with our belief systems, how we think, our judgments, any limiting beliefs that we have. And so what I really like about working with the skulls, I mean, I like a lot of things about it, but one thing is, if we're looking to uplift ourselves, if we know that maybe we have some limiting beliefs, or maybe we have some fears to work through, or maybe we just want a deeper level of consciousness, Maybe we want to learn to meditate on a more meaningful level. I feel like a crystal skull is the exact form that would be most helpful for people. Mm-hmm. And I also believe the interesting thing is, there are these magnificent, huge skulls around the world. And Max is a hefty skull, but by no means the largest. But really, any size crystal can connect to any of them. And so, even if you had the tiniest skull, I'm personally really attracted to a lot of these skulls that I can hold in my hands. Mm-hmm. I have a few skulls that are they're perfect for just, holding in each hand, great for meditating. Mm-hmm. And I know that even with a small skull, you can connect to the whole consciousness in that way. And it's like what you had said earlier, you don't even need a skull. You can just sit and connect. I mean, I do not have to hold a skull to sit and be in prayer mode and call on Max. It's the most amazing thing. And Tanya, I don't know if you've ever done that. Have you ever called in Max just to kind of connect to a loving vibration?
I hadn't like called him in, but he's come in. so maybe he was calling me. I don't know. But same thing, just yeah.
That's awesome.
But very, very loving. And I also, I think I mentioned to you, I also sat with Shana Ra, which is another ancient skull, and she's it completely different energies. Like Max, they're both very loving.
Okay.
But I also felt with Max, there's maybe a clarity or very fine-tuned kind of direct energy with him. So even the love will come that way. Whereas Shana Ra was very Mother Earth nurturing. There's a completely different. So still equally as powerful, but it just came through in a very working with the emotional levels, and it was a softer kind of energy, I guess. Not that Max is harsh, but it just was a little
different. It's different.
They're all so different, but yeah, it's an amazing energy.
Right. Well, I've not worked with her. I've not experienced her, but that sounds really interesting.
It was just once with each of them that I had. They just happened to come through our small Reno here town.
Of course they did.
They just happened. Yeah, I love it. Well, you already shared some of the ways that you're working on a daily basis, because I know some people are interested in that too. Like, well, what do you do with them on a daily basis? So if you want to share, other than meditation, if there's anything else you do with them, and also to piggyback on that one, how do you feel your life has changed now, adding in the work with the crystal skulls?
Well, I do different things. I like to keep them in groups, because I feel like anytime I get a little group of them together, then it's just like one assisting another. And so I do a lot of praying for people, and I keep a list of people that I'm actively praying for. And I literally will, use the skulls to kind of hold the page down, and it helps to hold my intention with the prayer to help various people. Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing that I like to do. Another thing is I'm literally putting them in various sacred geometry formations, because that's one of the things that I've seen as I've been working on this third book, because how the story is unfolding to me is there are intergalactic beings that can drop their consciousness into skulls. Mm-hmm. And I see that as tying in with sacred geometry formations as a way of creating a love grid, if you will, because love is the strongest vibration for balancing everything. And that's been a theme throughout the Highest Light series, that, you know, the characters, a lot of the characters are working to plant the love vibration and hold it. And so to me, I see the crystal skulls as helping with that. And where I'm at in book 3 right now, there are these uh, major skulls. They're not on planet Earth, but they are on a distant planet, and various priests and high priestesses are working with them to anchor in not just the love vibration, but some of the sacred knowledge that is going to be disappearing in the cataclysm. Because anybody that has looked at any of the mythology, it really it ends with a cataclysm. Now, that is, I'm hoping that this story is kind of going to go in a way that's a little bit unexpected in terms of that. But at least in this part of the book that I'm working on right now with the crystal skulls that are off the planet, a lot of the sacred knowledge has been taken and downloaded. Because if you think about how quartz crystal is, it's used in modern technology, modern computers, and things like that. Those chips can download and hold information. And so that's what I'm seeing and what I'm using as a plot line in this third book. The crystal skulls off the planet are being used to save so much of what we need to know. And so that's how it's working out right now. But so as part of that, I I am a guardian to a lot of skulls, just like I am a guardian to many crystals. And so, Tanya, I will say that I would love to have continuing conversations with you about crystals and about skulls. I mean, maybe we can even just focus on some of the skulls that we have, and how their personalities are, and how they play into our daily life. But I work with them in a number of ways on a daily basis. And I can tell you that even just by having them in a room, it can anchor the room in a very peaceful and loving way. And I've got a lot of crystals, but I'm finding that there's something very different about now that I've opened this doorway to just having a deeper connection with the skulls per se. They are upping the ante, so to speak. I mean, it's noticeably different, and so I move them around on a daily basis. I have different formations. I'm playing with these sacred geometry shapes, and so I have a bed upstairs that I have a grid, and I will move them around on the grid. And so they're just kind of in different places, and many of them will be on the nightstand right by where I sleep. And the interesting thing about that is it always changes, because I'm just always kind of randomly saying, okay, well, who wants to stand guard tonight, or who wants to go to dreamland, and I always get an answer. So it really lifts my inner child to be able to play with these skulls like this.
So much. I love that. Well, thank you for sharing all that, because yeah, you gave so many a variety of ways to work and be with the skulls. And I think that's helpful for people, especially first coming into a relationship with the skulls, to know. I especially loved your using them with your prayers and intentions and holding a page. That was really special. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was I going to say? You brought up something. Oh, because yeah, I didn't know. Again, I didn't know she was having crystal skulls in the third book. So now I'm extra excited. I learned that after I reached out, and I was like, "Of course she's writing about crystal skulls in the third book." So it'll be something exciting for any viewers if you do read her books, or just skip to the third one and don't know anything, just have fun. But yeah, so that's something to look forward to. But I love that you're sharing how they're going to be integral to all of what's unfolding there. Do you feel like the same kinds of stuff that you're writing about could be why they're prominent now, in helping to bring forth a needed wisdom or knowledge or ancient, information? Do you think that that's kind of why they might be showing up a lot more at this time?
I do. I think, I think that, a spiritual unfolding is a journey. It's not a single event.
Mhm.
And so I've been on this path for a number of years. And so even how it unfolds on a daily basis to me is still just it's surprising in a beautiful way, because I just truly never knew when the skulls would
Mhm.
kind of want to really join me and really call me to work with them. And this was so unmistakable that I really feel called. I feel that there is something about holding space. And I really relate to that. I feel like a space holder. I feel like an anchor. I feel like someone that, for a number of years, I've heard the phrase sometimes in meditation pretty consistently: hold the line, just hold the
Mhm.
line.
Mhm.
And what that means to me is just anchor in to this love vibration. Just wherever you are and whatever you're doing. Um, I really practice that. If I'm going to the bank or the store or driving somewhere or whatever, I do my best to just bless whatever I see.
Mhm.
And so I feel like these skulls make that easier for
Mhm.
me, because I feel like they are able to hold consistently that loving vibration. And I feel like a lot of us, myself included, I can get distracted or ungrounded, or there can be stress, or there can be something that can take me off my center. Even though I practice daily, staying as centered as possible. But these skulls for me make it easier. And so I'm pleasantly surprised by that. But I didn't expect that would be a part of this unfolding journey with them, but it really is. And so, you know, for me, it's all just tying together perfectly. It's the ancient wisdom from Chinese medicine and from other traditions. And it's working with people, and it's having an intention on a daily basis to be as uplifting and positive as I can. Um, they're right there with that. And so it excites me. I feel like I've become a crystal custodian and caretaker for a reason. Um,
Mhm.
I love them, and I love sharing them, and I love using them in the treatment room in acupuncture sessions. But I also just, you know, love meditating with them, or just having an intention for the day and knowing that they make it easier to just
Mhm.
stay positive and stay loving. I personally, that lights me up.
Aw, that's great. You just mentioned using them in some of your acupuncturist sessions. When you do that, do you find, well, are you are they being invited in a way that the your patients get to interact with them, and if so, how are they reacting? Is it like are they interested? Is it a curiosity? Is it helping them to feel a deepening? What's been that experience?
Well, I think all of those things are true. I am somebody that I'm aware that not everybody resonates with stones. And so I never try to have an agenda or push them on people. I tend to keep stones around, and there are some people that seek me out that they love crystals, and they just, you know, they're all about it, and so they will request them. There are other people that maybe it's just a little outside of their comfort zone or their belief system, and so I will often just um, ask somebody if they're a little unsure. I'll just ask, "Hey, would you like to see how this feels? If you want to hold this in your hand and just see if that feels good, and if that feels good, then maybe I'll put something by their feet or something by their head or something like that." There are other people that love having stones on their chakras, and so the crystal skull aspect is a little bit new. So I haven't really been incorporating them yet into treatments, but I really see them as anchoring a treatment room.
Mm.
And I also would really like to be hosting meditations with them. I would just love to have various, like let's say if I had a weekly meditation or something, and changing the sacred geometry grid every week, and okay, this week we're going to anchor in joy and let's just meditate on joy, or this week we're going to just focus on gratitude or love or whatever, and just let everybody experience the skulls. I'm somebody that I love it. I love for people to touch the stones or crystals, whatever I have. I like that. I like that interactive sharing. So I would love for something like that. So I will keep you posted as this, because I feel like it is going to develop.
Feel that just you talking about her. Well, and that's you have a move upcoming that you mentioned, and you can share whatever you want or not about that, but you mentioned that where you're going, you'd love to do some kind of gridding, and helping anchor love for those who come to that space, and the skulls may be a part of that as well, right?
I really see that. And so part of what I'm doing right now is packing. And so I'm going to be heading to Western New York before too long. And so we have a campground, and it's over 30 acres. And so what I really see is having a home for a lot of these crystal companions that I have gathered over all of these years. And I really see the skulls as being a central part of setting up meditations and weekly gatherings, or just, in treatment rooms. I really believe that these crystals want to work with people, and they're so wonderful at anchoring in a space. So I really see as they get settled in a new place, that's going to really be unfolding.
That's
I
awesome.
want to host drumming circles. I want to have kirtan. There are so many things that we're looking at doing once we get settled. But yeah, I see the stones and the skulls as having uh, a really grounding and centering and comforting and loving energy for a lot of people.
That's
So
wonderful. Beautiful. And I'm sure, a lot of this is from remembering things that, we've done other times. I mean, because that's something, when I read your books, um, I feel memories, that are seated within me that awaken. And a lot of the stuff it seems very familiar to me, that you write about, even though there's, variances, of course, because it's a fantasy romance novel, but a lot of the themes and some of the anchoring things going on feel, we've done that before. I mean, Is that something when you're writing that you feel too, like you're drawing from memories that are deep within you and then that builds into what it becomes?
I really do feel that way because of the way the information just flows, and the characters. A lot of these characters I've known, or I just feel like I've known, and so it feels like a memory, and maybe tying a memory to another theme where I feel like maybe this will help somebody. And, one of the themes in Atlantis Splitting is about hope and help can come from the most unexpected place or face. And that brings us back to let's just not judge anything.
Mhm.
Gadaris was set up in the first book as the guy to hate. But I've never hated him. And as a matter of fact, I have made him, I believe, a character that seems like he's redeeming himself in the second book. It's always interesting to hear how people respond when they hated him in the first book. And so there are reasons to start thinking maybe he's not such a bad guy. And maybe the deeper question is, well, should we really be thinking that anybody's the bad guy? Maybe we just need to back off from that a little bit.
Yep. Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm super excited for the next one, and it'll come out in divine timing. But especially now, hearing there's crystal skulls and all kinds of goodies. But thank you. Is there anything else? Well, I mean that's a lot. You're writing a book and you're making a move across many states, but and all the beautiful visions that you've shared. Is there anything else coming up on the scene for you that's you want to share about or?
Well, I feel like these are enough projects to be
Yes.
focusing on right now. I'm circling the wagons a little bit because I've got other things that I'm doing too, but right now the focus is moving to a new location and getting settled there. And I really want to get book 3 finished because it's really speaking to me, and I'm enjoying it so much, just being able to sit and let it unfold. So, and I'm so grateful that these skulls are helping with that. It's, yeah, I can't believe this whole thing, that our connection and everything connects, and I mean, just it's like
I'm sure we're going to find out more that just will
I
show up.
know, absolutely.
I'd like to say both Jean and I have friends around us. I mean, you can see some of mine in the background, but this one's Eustace. This, this is a blue calcite, and he specifically wanted to be with us today. So
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
I don't know if you see him that well, but
I, I love him. Blue calcite is one of my favorite stones. As a matter of fact, I love blue calcite, and I'm actually surrounded by a lot of different calcite stones.
Oh, really?
And a few of the skulls. So I'll pull a couple of these guys out.
Let's
So
see. Oh, see?
so this is orange calcite, and this skull's name is Sunny. And this
Oh,
is funny because I literally this is a new acquisition, and after I watched your crystal skull interview, and I knew that the big stones wanted to come in, that the big jade skulls from outside wanted to come in, and I was like, oh, I need to start unpacking my skulls, but maybe I just need to just look at some crystal skulls. So I Googled it, and when I Googled crystal skulls, this guy came up. And it was very funny because this guy was for sale on eBay. And I'm like, this is nuts, but I have to put a bid in. So I put in a very low bid, and I got a notice right afterward that I had been outbid, and I just kind of forgot about it. But I was so grateful because when I looked at this stone, this skull on an ad on Google literally said to me, "Hi, I'm Sunny." And I just started laughing. I was like, "Of course you are." So I put in this low bid. I got outbid, and then I got a notice that Sunny was sold. And I thought, well, I just needed to see that skull for some reason. And so the weird thing is, a couple of days passed, and I've been an eBay customer for 20 years. This has never happened to me before. I got a notice, "Congratulations, you just bought this skull." And apparently the winning bidder backed out. And so this skull was already being shipped to me. And I thought, well, this is how it works. I know this is how it works. This is how it works with stones. They appear, disappear, whatever. None of us should ever worry, because if a skull is meant to come to you, it will. I did not know why I needed Sunny, but Sunny needed to come here and be part of what we're doing. So
I love that story. When you told me, I was like, of course. Guys were connected, so
everything.
that person backed out. It just, it wasn't the same heart connection.
It's so true. It's just interesting. And in my books, and you may have noticed, like I use a lot of intention when I choose names, and so a lot of the names are based on Sanskrit. And so what's really interesting is a few of these skulls that told me what their names were. I don't have any that have a Sanskrit name. And the interesting thing is, it's always something just very simple. Like, I have this laughing skull.
Oh, I love it.
This laughing skull, of course, this is crazy lace agate, and that is the happy stone. And I thought that's kind of cool that the laughing skull that I have is a happy stone, but this is joy.
Aww.
So, I mean, it's very simple
Yep.
to me. And so, I mean, I guess I would just want to encourage anybody, don't be so cerebral about it. Just have fun. Just have fun. I believe that the Crystal Kingdom is a great way to just relax and nurture yourself and encourage your inner child to just come out and play a little bit.
That's so true. I love that advice. And that's how Eustace got his name, actually.
I love Eustace. I love it.
He's actually connected to Astrid, my bunny, like very much so. He was around, and and you're probably the same with your fur children. All these nicknames come out, right? And you don't even think about it, but it just like comes off the tongue. And then this month it's this name, and then it's this. And I just, I'm like, well, they're just giving it to me, so I go.
Yes.
And this was one of the little names that I was calling her.
I love it. I love it.
Along with a lot of other baby googly kinds of words, but yeah. So Eustace, and I had like a tone with it and everything. But
I love it.
when I saw this, when he's so happy and so sweet, and the energy was just her. So this became Eustace. So.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, I love you. You've given so many great, little tidbits and advice, and making things simple and easy and just flowing. But it's been awesome to hear somebody else share their journey, and it's a beginning but very flourishing journey that you're having so quickly. Once once you heard those first jade skulls.
But it was that episode. I'm telling you, you opened the doorway. There was something about that episode that truly opened the doorway. So I'm so grateful. That was really amazing.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing. Yeah, I will have to talk, because I'm getting the flow of maybe some other stuff that's going to happen between you and I from what you said.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
We're in. We want to play.
Yes, you want to play.
That's what it's about. And again, that's how I started this. That's what I love about Gene. And ultimately, I think that's what united us. All of this stuff is wonderful and beautiful and talks about the rich connection, but it's how our hearts are just united in spreading joy and love and inspiration and being those kinds of lights, that we all can be in the world. So thank you for being an anchor of such beautiful energy, Jean. It means so much. And you mean so much.
You, Tanya. Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful. My heart is just full, totally full. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you taking this time, and you all out there didn't see, but Jean and I had some fun getting on this to start with. The tech fairies
Some
were
tech
playing with us,
issues.
so we did it.
Yay.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you. And I am going to put Jean's the way you can contact her or get one of her books if you found interest in what we're sharing about them. So I'll have a lot of those below this video. And if you have any comments or questions, we both welcome them and would love to hear anything that you'd like to share about or anything you want to hear in an upcoming episode or something between Gina and I that we can put together. I think we're both in.
Definitely.
So great. Well, thank you again, Jean. So much love to you. And everyone who is tuning in, again, may all possibilities be open to you and sending out all our love and gratitude. Until next time.